So it's been 3 days since what many are calling the most devastating loss in Australian boxing history, where Tszyu took the beating of a lifetime, being knocked down 5 times in his second championship fight to try to get it to try to become a two-time champion at 154. He got beat up and battered by Boogeyman Murtazaliev so bad that boxing fans, mostly Australian, are all over the place. Many are saying he's a hype job, calling for him to retire, bad matchmaking, and I've seen some very rare though say, "Oh, Tim didn't look good. I wonder what was wrong." So here we are now with a new with a reigning IBF champion right now, Boogeyman Murtazaliev, who is now sitting on top of the world in the 154-pound division and looking like a boogeyman. Some are even arguing that Boogeyman Murtazaliev would do the same to Terence Crawford and Sebastian Fundora, which would basically make him undisputed champion at 154 pounds. On TstreeT Controversy with Fight View 360, we got my colleague Big J on the line. And Australian fans have been in hell the last few days. Even Tszyu, in several interviews and on his Instagram, pretty much saying he don't know what the fuck happened. And to be very honest, it's early to tell. But I'm not saying that he shouldn't be sad. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be upset or down on himself. Natural human emotions. But he's looking, from what I've been seeing, like just like a broken fighter, even in a post-fight interview. So many are going to ask or say, well, he was too arrogant. And that's a term that's been circulating around a lot, even from a former possible opponent, a fight that didn't go through with Keith Thurman. We keep hearing the term arrogant, and that he came over here to the States thinking he was going to blow through everybody and that his name and his power just was going to get him through all of his obstacles. So right now, the question I have is, what do we do with Tim? Or what does boxing do with Tszyu yet? Does he take a layoff to refocus, on defense, take some time with his family, then have a really good hard camp? Does he move up in weight? Or, does he get right back out there in, let's say, February or so and starts working his way back up to 154-pound rankings? Because as I'm looking at the 160-pound rankings, I'm not quite sure if that's the place for him to go. So I'm going to bring in Big J, and we're going to look at some social media posts and talk about the fight, the aftermath, I guess. What do you think he should go next?
Well, I said in our last video that he should go to 160, and I'll probably maintain that. Because at 154, I think Peter Bedell on the main event broadcast said it correctly. This is going to set him back 2 years.
Yeah, it's definitely 2 years.
He's not going to get another title shot at 154 for 2 years unless he goes after the IBO route. That's the only way he's going to get.
In the world, let me just nix that. The IBO title, it don't count. And to be very honest, Tszyu is above the IBO belt. It's not going to be world recognized.
Exactly. Well, I mean, yeah, he's above it, but so was George, and George went after him.
Yeah, but don't nobody talk about George being the IBO champion. It's not recognized, especially here in the States where both George and Tszyu want to base themselves.
Exactly. So, it would only be a step stone to get back into the IBF rankings anyway, because they're highly associated with them. But for all the 4 major titles, he's a good 2 years away from. He needs to get at least 4, 5, maybe even 6 wins under his belt before he's even considered for another title shot. So it's as simple as that. Because the only one that he hasn't had a shot at is the WBA.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. So, because of his name, I can see him getting a title shot within 3 fights. I could see, especially an organization like the WBA or the WBO who loves him. I could see it possibly happening. But as far as being a man, I don't know. It's tricky. It's tricky.
Well, there's a lot of guys now that are ahead of him. Mm-hmm. So you've got Barachok and Madrimov there's Virgil Ortiz creeping up. There's obviously, there's still the champions. There's Crawford. There's Fundora. There's Murtazaliev. He won't get another shot at him.
And for the WBO, you got Crawford, who's the interim champion. You got Xander Zayas, who's the next in line, along with Josh Kelly. So yeah, he's there's too many people in front of him. We can probably expect that Murtazaliev is going to fight Lubin next.
Yes, and Murtazaliev will probably easily destroy Lubin. Yeah. Lubin's no threat to anybody. So, it's really really hard to say what he should do. I think he should probably not come back until probably June of next year to get his head right and everything. Because he needs to work on his defence. Because this is the one thing that happened to Tim that I've been saying for years. He's never really been hit. Murtazaliev is the only guy that really planted one on him. Okay, he's been knocked down, a couple of flash knockdowns against Terrell Goucher and
Wade Ryan. Those are telling now in hindsight, those two knockdowns, because we know he can be knocked down. So coming up against a puncher,
we already knew that. Happened. We already knew that before. Before he fought Murtazaliev, that he could be knocked down. But there's a difference between a flash knockdown and what Murtazaliev did. There was no flash knockdown. Murtazaliev knocked his lights in.
Yeah.
So
to the point where his legs was gone when he got up.
Exactly. It was all over. It was all over once he got the first knockdown. It was all over then. So, but the other thing that's reared its ugly head, and I don't like this, and a lot of people say this is the way to go. But as you know, Mick Sarafis stuck up his head and basically sunk the boots into him. And said, well, I'm your only option now, which is complete bullshit. I don't want the Zarafa fight. I think Mick had his chance and his ship has sailed. I don't think there's any benefit to it whatsoever for Tim, to be perfectly honest with you. And I think going after Tim, right, and sinking the boots in is not the way to go. I mean, I don't. Anyone that's sinking the boots into Tim, you're pretty low. I mean, the poor bastard just got his fucking lights punched out. There's no need to sink the boots in. I was tempted to sink the boots in when we did our video the other day. I'm like, what's the point? That just makes me look like a dickhead. Yeah. There's no point sinking the boots into the poor bastard. He just got knocked the fuck out.
Not only did he get knocked out, he got beat bad. He got beat up. Like, he got beat up and knocked out. Like, it was a brutal beating, and how long it lasted. 3 rounds.
Exactly. So, I mean, I did say, right, before he was going to fight Charlo the first time, before Charlo hurt his hand, that what Murtazaliev did to him, Charlo would have done to him if they first fought. I saw that coming because I knew that he'd never been hit by someone like Murtazaliev, right? If you said everything I said, go back and watch the videos. You said everything I said about Charlo and put Murtazaliev's name in place of Charlo, I was right on the money. As I said, the first time that he goes up against a legit world champion, someone who's an A-grade fighter, he'll get his fucking lights knocked out. And what happened? He got his lights knocked out. So, because Tim is a B-grade fighter who's been beating up C and D-grade fighters his entire career. Of course he always looks... You're going to look better against your competition when your competition is 3-4 levels down from where you are.
Yeah.
And he finally fought someone that was levels above him and got knocked out.
But it's also... Right? See, here's the thing. It's also really not a good look because Fedor wasn't rated very highly, in boxing.
No.
And remember, he got that belt coming off of a loss. Murtazaliev wasn't rated highly. And let me say something that was bothering me. Murtazaliev was relatively unknown because we talked about it briefly. For people who are going out here saying, well, Tim should have known better, Murtazaliev is a good fighter, that's bullshit because Murtazaliev's fights for the last 5+ years have been deep, buried in undercards or untelevised. So nobody, and I'm talking about, nobody really knew who he was and never seen him fight to this level before, ever. Now, of course, if you know him, if you're a boxer or a trainer who knew him in camp or sparred with him, you may have known. But the general public, the boxing fans, and we here on this channel, we were looking for his fights because we were calling for Tszyu to fight him years ago. So his fights have not been widely televised. And then when he fought Jack Kuke, he looked like shit. And you can argue, okay, he was training during Ramadan where he wasn't allowed to eat while the sun was up, drinking water during camp. anything. And he was in 27th day when the fight was going on. He was in the 27th day of Ramadan, and basically at the end of a month of fasting during the day. So the point is, you have, well known. If you say, people always like to throw around the term, a real journalist or a credible journalist or a boxing expert. What the fuck? I never even knew these days what a boxing expert really meant, because the way me and Jay are going, probably in 20 years or so, people are going to say we're boxing experts. So the point I'm trying to make, not to be long-winded, is even the so-called quote unquote boxing experts or real journalists, quote unquote, they're even saying the same thing. Like, we never knew Murtazaliev was like that. There was nothing to go off, no fights to go off, no footage or tape to really go off of competition. So now a question is going to be, well, is Murtazaliev really that good? Let's see how he looks in his next fight. Is he really that good, or was Tim not that good? Murtazaliev's next fight is really going to answer a lot of questions, and I'm not jumping on the hype train just yet.
No, but I'm looking at it like this. Murtazaliev is one of those Russian Muslim blokes, similar to, what's the Russian Muslim bloke in the UFC? Sorry?
Oh, go ahead. I thought you were talking about Murtazaliev. Go ahead. I'm listening.
No. Yeah, well, similar. Yeah, exactly. Pretty much exactly like Murtazaliev. That's Murtazaliev.
They're disciplined fighters.
Yeah, those guys do not fuck around.
They don't, and that's been very well known. They're disciplined fighters, and they're high volume pressure. I mean, they're usually like high volume, like not high volume, but pressure fighters, and usually accurate. That is very true.
Exactly. He's the super welterweight division, super welterweight version of Murtazaliev.
Yeah.
So, what's the name of the UFC fighter kicked the shit out of McGregor? Khabib.
Yeah.
Is that his name?
Khabib,
so,
yeah, that guy. I don't want to butcher his name. I've got to say it already.
Yeah. Those guys are all the same. Russian Muslims that do not fuck around, live, breathe, and think boxer. Well, Murtazalyev's not in that category because he just looks at it as a job. But disciplined Russian Muslims. What do I call them? What? They're from a certain region, starts with C. I can't remember what it's called.
What,
but
Eastern
those
European?
Guys.
Those are the Eastern Europe. They either come in two types. They either come like fighters like Murtazaliev, or they come like fighters like Usyk, Loma, and Bivol. They either come in two different forms. Yeah,
but those guys don't fuck around.
They're either pressure fighters or they're technicians, guys like Madrimov.
Yeah, they don't muck around. And I really put it down to, as I said to you before we started recording, two things. A, the psychological problems of the Fandora fight for Tim, and B, he was cocky and he was arrogant, and he took Murtazaliev far too lightly, as we all did, because we didn't have enough evidence, because we're going off one fight. He looked like shit against Jack Koukai, and everyone thought, Tim will get through him because he looked like crap against a 37-year-old fighter, which we said in the previous game. Well, he looked like crap against Jack Koukai. Jack Koukai was, hanging on by a thread. Tim should get out there and, you said 4 rounds, but I said it wasn't going to. I said it would have been a 9-10 round, a methodical beat down of him, and we're all dead wrong. And the Tim Tszyu fans are just completely devastated and think their lives are over. The Aussie boxing fans, okay, that happened. There's a few out there that saw it coming, like I did. As I said, I've been saying this for years, that Tim has never fought an A-grade fighter, right?
Yeah.
And the second he did, he would get destroyed, and he did. Because, why I was shocked that it happened, when I look back and watched videos of everything I said before he would fight Charlie the first time, everything I said that, as I said, I hit the nail right on the head. He was going to get destroyed inside of 3 rounds, and he did. I remember saying about Charlie. Charlie would knock him out inside of 3 rounds. Murtazaliev knocked him out inside of 3 rounds. So it's would have been interesting this at the time if Tim fought Charlo the first time when he was supposed to. What Murtazaliev done to him, Charlo would have done to him.
Yeah. So listen to this. Now, I'm just going to put out this random stat. These fights right here that I'm showing on the screen, you can't find these fights. we're going back to 2018. Murtazaliev versus McNeil, Murtazaliev versus Carsimo, Murtazaliev versus Gonzala, Murtazaliev versus Ayaya, Murtazaliev versus Romay, Murtazaliev versus his man when he became IBF mandatory for Charlo in November of 2019 when he beat Jorge Forte. All these fights after this were untelevised until he came to fight Jack Kouquet. So fights going back to, at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, dead in the chat, but I'm pretty sure I looked all of these up. Going back to 2018, his fights were untelevised. You couldn't find them.
So there's no evidence of what he was up to.
You know, you had to either watch them on some live Russian stream somewhere, or some, or be in the arena to watch. If not all those fights I've mentioned, probably 80% of them. You know, there wasn't no tape. There wasn't nothing to watch. So people are saying, Tim should have known better. Nobody knew.
Exactly. There's where we've been watching Tim since. Well, I've been watching him since the. And
I started in 2020.
John Camilleri fight.
I started with Jeff Horn.
But we started with Jeff Horn because that was our first fight that we started on together. But I've been watching him since Joel Camilleri, which was May of 2019, which is when he came onto the scene. I think that was. His first pay-per-view was against Joel Camilleri for the Australian title, and I've been watching him for over 5 years.
Yeah.
So we've got all the evidence of what Tim can do, but we had none against Berker and Murtazaliev, and due to the creation of the Australian media, everyone was thinking, "Yep, no worries, Tim should get rid of this bloke without too many dramas, and on to the next, on to the Crawford fight," or whatever they were. I mean, some dickhead even mentioned Canelo. I mean, God.
I remember they were talking that. I remember he even had Canelo on a T-shirt at one point in time.
Do you remember when Jeff Fenech said that Tim could beat Canelo?
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh my God. I'm just going to say nothing but laugh at that. I mean, at the time, I'm like, seriously, Jeff, you think that? But anyway, well, that's never going to happen. And anyone who thought that, you have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. Anyway,
I'm looking at the clip of the brief head clash. It was it wasn't nothing significant. And it's in slow-mo of how, Tim, he's really got some PTSD from that. He's got to recover from that.
Please don't use that term. That's reserved for his soldiers. Don't use that.
Yeah, I got you.
He's a fuck. Don't. You know how much that pisses me off.
No, but think about it. Listen, I was diagnosed with it. It's a real thing for people who go through a traumatic experience. So for him, it seems to be a traumatic experience. He got a little nick on the head. He got a little nick on the head, and the way he backed up, you would have thought that, he started gushing. Like any little nick or cut, he's going to have issues with that.
I understand that, but that's a bit different to getting blown up by
I guess, but I hear you. But it comes, it's trauma either way.
A little cut on the head is a lot bit different to what other people go through. So,
but it depends on how it affects. It depends on how it affects your mental health. True. He doesn't look like he's going to be ever comfortable in fighting in close. And another thing that I'm looking at in this clip is he pulled back. Like if he didn't have that little head clash or whatever was going on right there, Murtazaliev was going to throw that left hook, and Tszyu pulled back. And as I'm looking at, each time Tszyu would go to the body, he would drop his glove, and then what would Murtazaliev do? Come over with the left hook.
Exactly. I couldn't believe that Tim didn't go to the body more in the first place, because that was one of his best assets, his body shots, and he didn't use them. I couldn't believe it. So he went headhunting. He did everything. He did everything wrong. Everything wrong. The cockiness, the arrogance. I think what was wrong is that he was looking past Murtazaliev, and he done what most fighters do when they get beat, is that they completely overlooked his opponent. Right? He overlooked his opponent, as you said. When he looked at his head, right, because I said in the last video, as soon as he looked at his head, the fight was done, because he's worried about his head, right? If he hasn't got that under control, he's going to be.
Which is probably why he backed off of the body.
Yeah, exactly. So as I said to you before, I think the Fandora fight, right, was his jumping the shark moment. Right? Now, you know what that term means, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
So, yeah,
You know, saying, what is it, counting your chickens before they hatch, stuff like that.
Yeah, for those who don't know what the jumping the shark moment is, it's a Happy Days reference where Fonzie literally jumped the shark. The show was at its peak, and it was all downhill from there.
Yeah.
Pretty much, Tszyu was at his peak during the Fandora fight, and once that cut happened, it's pretty much been all downhill from here. So, as I said in the last video, unless he gets that cut literally under wraps and he gets through that,
he's got to get out. The cut's healed, and the longer he's out, it's gonna continue to heal up. And freak accident cuts just don't happen like that. He's got to get his head together. That's what it is. He's got to get mentally over that.
He's got to get his head right and think about, not think about it because his head's right. He didn't bleed. He looked at his head. Yep, okay, I'm fine. But I think that more so about the cut, it was more so about the fact that he overlooked and underestimated his opponent, like we all did. Yeah. Everyone, I didn't see anyone. I can't see anyone saying that Murtazaliev was going to win that fight.
And that's a lot. And that's what was bothering me about some of the comments is, how was Tszyu the favorite when Murtazaliev was the champion? It's like, no, that's ridiculous.
That shit.
Exactly, ridiculous.
That doesn't mean, just because you're the champion does not mean shit.
Exactly.
So, I mean,
was Miguel Cotto the champ? Was Miguel Cotto the favorite against Floyd Mayweather? If we're using that logic.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, even when Pacquiao fought Floyd, Pacquiao was a champion. He was the underdog. So, but then again, Floyd was a champion as well. But I mean, that you're the champion. That doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean that
Here's what Erickson Lubin had to say. It wasn't an upset. He fought the champion. He was the favorite, but it wasn't an upset. Who has Tszyu fought? Let's be real. Who has he beaten fought? Tony Harrison was over the edge past his prime. I agree with that.
I agree with that.
No, put it to it. It was a good showcase of Tszyu's skills. Very good showcase. But let's not forget, he was having issues with the jab with Tony Harrison. He was having some issues early.
Well, as I said, I want to make this point. I've been saying, and I probably said it up until including probably the Fandora fight, that Tim was most vulnerable in the first and second rounds. I've been saying this for how long? Pretty much what? The entire time we've been covering him. I always said the way to beat Tim is get onto him in the first and second rounds because he was traditionally a very slow starter. He'd take 2 or 3 rounds to get his eye in, and once he got his eye in, he was very hard to beat. But once again, Tim was fighting guys that were level or so below him, right? He was never fighting top-notch guys. He was always fighting guys that were either at his level or just below, guys that were past their best or were never going to be anything anyway. And he finally come up against a guy who was an A-grade fighter and got put in his place. And I've been saying that since we've been covering him since Jeff Horn. So he was always very slow and amateurish in his first 2 rounds. By the third, fourth round, he had his eye in. He was in control. He did what he did to win the fight. But against Murtazaliev, I don't know what he was thinking. I think the media and all the hype and all that just got to his head, and he was finally like. If you go back to fights before that, Tim wouldn't say a word.
Wouldn't.
Tim spoke. Yeah, you couldn't get a word out of Tim.
Yeah.
People always used to say he doesn't say anything. He doesn't need to. I used to say all the time, what do they want him to talk for? He doesn't need to talk. He doesn't talk him with his fists. Right? Yeah. He doesn't need to talk. He doesn't need to sit there and act a fool and carry on like a moron and say this and say that. And I know Americans like all that flamboyant bullshit. Australians don't, and Russians certainly don't. They barely string a sentence together, right? Because they don't need to. Right? And what happened? He was cocky, he was flamboyant, he was arrogant, and he got knocked out. So
yeah, well, I don't think that we're we're probably not gonna hear anything about anything Tim Tszyu doing until about like January. So don't be surprised if you hear interviews of his team saying, he's going to be spending time with his family and we're going to plan his next move from there. We do have one more part. What you say?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Speaking of which, what do you think? Do you think it's time for a new team, or what's your
Here's
thoughts
the
on
thing.
this?
Well, for one, there's contracts and all that. He probably can't just bounce out of his team. PBC has already stated to Tim Tszyu's team that they're going to be supporting him, and the door is always open for him to return. But going back to the Fedora fight, yes, they should have pulled him. They shouldn't have. They shouldn't have took that fight on late notice. In hindsight, we can say that now. But also when that cut came, they should have stopped the fight, and it would have went to the cards.
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, everyone can say what they want, but the fact of the matter is that the evidence is building, or it's there, is that maybe the team that Tim's got is not the best thing for him.
Yeah.
Because they took that Fedora fight on. I always said, and I'm going to maintain that Thurman fight was bullshit. That was never going to happen. That was just a front to get Fedora snuck in the door. That was a setup from the get-go. Because I said, remember when the fight was announced, I said, this is bullshit. This is not going to happen. This is a front for something else. Mm-hmm. So I took one look at it and said, he ain't fighting no Keith Thurman. This is horse shit. So, and, that happened, and then the cut happened, and the team, it's like, and then the Murtazaliev fight happened, which everyone thought would be a good comeback. No one thought it was a bad move. And then the team they should have thrown in the towel in the first instance after the first knockdown in the third round.
Yeah.
They didn't. It seems that, it seems like they're not doing what's in best interest. Because here's the problem, and I'll keep saying this, right? I've always been in belief, and a lot of people, especially the media, and especially his team, is that they look at Tim and they see Kostya.
Yeah, that's not the case. They learned though.
Kostya. He's not Kostya, and he never will be. All right? That's the one problem I think that people, younger fighters don't, but older fighters who are our age look at Tim and they think of Kostya. He's not bloody Kostya. He never fucking will be.
Yeah.
All right? He's his own man. I mean, how much did that piss me off when we started covering him? They introduced him as Tim, the son of. Jeez, that used to fuck. You remember how much that used to piss me off?
But remember, but he shot that down himself at the end of. I forgot what post fight it was where he said, "My name is Tim."
Oh, the Jeff fight. Fight.
Yeah. So he shot that down himself. And they stopped.
Which is good.
But closing thoughts.
I think he should not worry about 154 and go to 160. But then again, those guys are bigger and they hit harder again. Mm-hmm. I think he should stay as far away from Mixer-Rafa as possible. I don't want to see that fight. That fight is done. But
main event need dates. They got to fill those dates. I won't be surprised if they go after it.
Well, I've said from the get-go
political reasons.
That the Rose brothers want Tszyu versus Zerafa, and I don't really think they really care which one, right? All right, because they were prepared to make Nikita Zerafa there, straight after the last Nikita fight that he had. Mm-hmm. So I don't think they care which Tszyu they use. I think they just want to get a Tszyu versus Zerafa fight. So, and obviously, Tszyu versus Zerafa, Tim is a much bigger fight than if Nikita fights Mick. So if you throw the IBO belt in there, which is vacant at the moment, which they can easily get done, it makes it even bigger. So, because the Tim fans go, he's got another world belt. Because remember, there's a difference between Tim Tszyu fans and boxing fans, right? Tim Tszyu fans are completely devastated at the moment and don't know what day of the week it is because they can't think straight, right? Boxing fans are like, yeah, okay, it's bad, he got knocked out, but this is an opportunity to focus on Jai, Liam, Sky, Sam Goodman's got his shot against Inoue. It's an opportunity, and the media can actually focus on other boxers. George, don't forget George.
Yes,
Fox Sports go well.
Yes, start promoting Sam Goodman, who's got a big undisputed fight coming up.
Exactly.
Undisputed.
The chances of Sam winning that are pretty much very, very little.
But think about it. You said the same thing about Inoue. I mean, Murtazaliev. I'm not saying that Tszyu is up to that level, but you never know these days, man. And also, Inoue was dropped by Louis Neri, and he was having a tough time with DJ Doheny. Now, listen, let me go ahead and say Inoue is a pound-for-pound fighter. I'm not saying Sam Goodman's going to win, but I'm just saying, like, hey, you know, like, I got my eyes on that fight more than ever now, because 2 fights now, Inouye's been showing some cracks. Let's just say.
Yep. Well, don't forget that, God, what was the old mate's name that broke his eye socket?
Yeah, broke his face. Nonito Donaire. As the old man Nonito Donaire that was fighting at a division he had no business fighting at.
Exactly. So
age.
There's been a couple of kinks in Inouye's armor for some time now. So, yeah. But on Tim, like, he'll be back. Everyone is saying he should retire. Oh, bullshit. Leave him alone. I mean, I'm hoping... I hope people rise above... it's a couple of days over, but I hope people rise above the sinking the boots in, because that just makes you look like a dickhead. Don't kick a man while he's down. He just got his ass knocked out. Why would you want to sink the boots in?
Yeah.
He's lost. It's pretty devastating, but he'll be back, right? I'm concerned that if he doesn't get his head right and his team doesn't get right, things are only going to get worse.
Yeah.
Right? Because the worst thing that he can do is have a bunch of yes men around and going, yep, you'll be right, we'll get back, you'll be a champion again. No, let's just get him a fight that, he can win, and that's not hard to do.
Yeah.
Right? And then go from there. And I think the real challenge is, does he move or does he stay? Because if he stays at 154, you're looking at least a year and a half to 2 years before you get another title shot, politically. Yeah. So, and I don't believe a goddamn word PBC says. They say they supported him. Yeah, I'll believe that when I see it. I don't, believe a word they say. So that's my final thoughts. What do you think?
Well, I think that we're not going to hear anything. Don't be surprised if Tim Tszyu falls off the map until about January or so. Then we'll hear about what he's going to be doing next. If he does go to 160, he'll likely be fast tracked. He'll probably have a title shot within three fights. Not too much politics going on up there, and frankly, nobody's chasing the Ali Mahanallah fight. But we don't know if he's still going to be in the division or not, because he was having weight issues. We don't know if he'll be in the division by the time Tim will have enough confidence or built himself up to possibly be able to get that fight. But I think, let's see. I think we got to see what Crawford's going to do next, because my gut feeling is telling me that Crawford is entertaining that Conor McGregor fight, and he only wants Canelo. I think that at one point in time he was considering and did want undisputed at 154, but I think after Madrimov he's not considering that anymore.
I agree. I think that then that's the other ripple effect of this. A lot of other fighters have gone, oh, shit, this guy's actually a beast. I don't think I want to fight him.
Yeah.
So, because I guarantee Fendora will want nothing to do with him.
I don't think that Crawford wants anything to do with Murtazaliev. I don't think that Fendora wants anything to do with Murtazaliev, and I don't think that boxing wants Murtazaliev to be an undisputed champion. It's a shame that's how it works, but now it's crazy that Murtazaliev has likely become a boogeyman. Yeah, Lubin to be sacrificed to him, but I'm not quite sure about from what I've seen that night, and I've never been too high on Fendora, but what I've seen, Murtazaliev will ice him.
Tim was going to ice him until he got cut.
And Murtazaliev is a big dude. Crawford doesn't want to get hit with that. You have weight classes for a reason. Crawford does not want to get hit with that.
And personally, who could blame him? So
Crawford's a 135-pounder he started at.
Exactly. At the end of the day, Crawford
Murtazaliev can compete at 168 at least.
A blown up lightweight.
Yeah.
So. Exactly. I think you're right. He's probably going to chase the money from McGregor, and personally, who can blame him? Fendora is going to fight Spence, because let's face it, pretty much everyone in the division, right? I mean, out of all the champions, if I was in 154 division, I'd be begging for a Fendora fight, because he's the one to beat.
Yeah.
If you could get inside of his reach, because if he's smart, right, and to his credit, he smartened up in that Tim fight real smart, because he was forced to use his jab and his reach to his advantage.
He stood tall, and he used his jab.
I think he's going to be a completely different fighter next fight. I think that's what he's going to do from now on out. I don't think he's going to do this inside bullshit anymore. So I think he's going to be like, I'm tall, I've got a long reach, I'll just use my jab.
Yeah.
So, and he could jab his way to victory. So,
yeah.
Much like Haney did against George, just jabbed his way to victory. So for the first fight. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens, and all those. I mean, Murtazaliev has put the entire 154 division on notice.
All right.
On notice, isn't it? All right. Yeah.
Well, with that being said, we went longer than we expected with this video, but surprisingly, we're still not done because I want to be able to talk about No Limit and how they've been handling Australian boxing, but we're going to save that for another video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at TstreeT Controversy and Big J at Old Mate Big J. We're going to see you guys later, and you can expect some more videos from us on Sam Goodman and whatever's going to be happening at Jaya Pattaya next. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.